Okay, now we're ready. Now we're
I
ready.
don't know if we can do
Okay,
tiers.
For sure.
Part when I was on the floor, and I didn't know everybody when I was on the floor.
Record it?
Do any?
Yep.
I think we're gonna be in here working.
Just wait a minute and see if Mike shows up.
Yeah. I don't think we'll be able to do anything till next week.
We may have to go to I hope it's okay.
It should be quick anyway.
Yeah.
It's only Langley, and it's basically, yeah.
Right. Right.
So Amy made. You can get away from 1,300.
No, Mike was part of a late night meeting was it last night? Yeah. Maybe that's what,
It's $500.
maybe he's getting worn out.
More hours.
The full month.
She said she knows people stand.
Last night was a
yeah.
long meeting.
Yeah. 15, 20 at a time.
Did you get the LRPC?
Well, I asked her, I said, do you want any help?
Yeah.
Is it gonna help you? And she was like, oh, no, no problem, I'll take care of it. She says, next year. Yeah. She said there was a lot to keep track of. She said, I have all this cash, and I was getting nervous.
How long does it takes to get to Holderness?
Yeah, yeah.
From here?
Yeah, so
Half hour, maybe more, right?
Yeah. 35, 40 minutes maybe?
she said a few people.
Because
Oh,
it's like 15, 20 to Meredith, give or take,
When
depending
people
on
did it,
traffic or whatever.
everybody seemed satisfied with it, so.
And another 15 or 20.
It's a little, yeah, some people that are active and want to do a good job.
I
Yeah,
texted
right, and have
I
other-
replied.
You're not busy in the summer, are
Okay.
you at all?
I can put it on.
This one next week.
What
I
do
have
put it
goat
on?
food for you. In
Yeah, my
car.
wife
In
says-
my car.
Oh, okay, that's even better.
I know.
That's even better.
So if you
I
want
might as
to
well
feed
get
your
started. I'm not sure, we got three members, I guess, that won't be here. Bob won't be here, and Jay, we're not sure of, and I guess Edwin had an accident of some sort, so we don't know what's happening with him. But if Rob would take attendance, and we'll move forward. Call the meeting to order at 6:37.
Paul Lambert,
Yep.
David Doyle,
Here,
Mike Foot,
Here,
Bill Contardo,
Yep.
and then we have Dean Trefethan, planning director, and Brady Laughlin, assistant chairman. With Edwin Bones not present, Bob Hamel not present, and Jay Tippman not present.
Okay. All right. We have the minutes from the last meeting. Can we have a motion? Does anybody have input on those minutes, by the way? Any feedback? Okay, can we have a motion to accept those minutes?
motion to accept the minutes as presented.
You have a second on that? No second?
no second, just you don't have to do that anymore.
Huh? You don't have to do it, you're saying? Oh, okay, well, then it's accepted. Okay, first on the agenda tonight is Parks and Recs. Oh, I guess first would be the fire department, I'm sorry. Yep, fire departments, yep, so that would be the first
Come on.
department to speak?
Drive or not.
I have 87 items, I'll be really on.
That was quick. It's not really a,
Lights down.
yeah, it's not really a presentation. I just I have some pictures up there. When I talk about a couple things, I thought it might just help to
Okay.
be able to see what we're doing.
No, that's good. Should be good.
Oops, backspace. Oh, backspace isn't working. There we go. All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
I think I've been in front of the board a couple of times, but for those of you who don't know me, Kirk Beatty, I'm the Assistant Fire Chief. So, if there's no order for us, I'm going to start out with just going through the items that are either what we're considering as our top priorities or new to the stuff. I know sometimes there's things on there, obviously, that have been there for a few years that are long-term planning, wish list sort of stuff, and it's the same stuff, so we won't beat any of that stuff unless you guys have questions for me on that. Not sure how your printout goes, but I'm going to start on the third page of my printout, which is F13 for us. It's the purchase of protective clothing. One of the things that we're listing this year is our first two things are 1 and 2, or tie for 1, if you will. But this is one that is new, but we're considering as an urgent purchase. Our goal is to purchase 40 sets of new firefighting gear, our protective equipment, and not that there's any real question on it, but this is a picture of the stuff that we use. In our normal budgeting process, in our operating budget, we do budget for the ability to replace certain sets of gear per year. It's works out to be, depending on what we're able to buy, somewhere in the 6 to 8 sets range. The problem that we run into is that money also goes into a lot of the other parts of the gear. So if we were to go through a bunch of gloves, have to replace helmets, that type of stuff, the money to spend on this goes out the window. The other thing that we've run into over the last few years is replacement of firefighters. Hiring in new firefighters. We do buy them a new set of gear. We try to replace, if a new firefighter comes in and can fit somebody that had stuff before, we'll get theirs a little bit later. The problem is we don't have a lot in spare, so what ends up happening is they don't fit it. So you end up hiring a guy that's 6'3", and there's replacing a guy that's 5'8", and the gear just doesn't fit them. So we end up having to go out and buy a full set of gear. Everything from top to bottom, helmet to boots, and everything in between is about $3,000. The stuff you're seeing right there, just those pieces of it, is going to run, the newer stuff's pushing at about $1,800. The other thing that's really a big push on this right now is one of the biggest things that we've been dealing with over the last few years is the increased awareness of cancer in the fire service. And one of the things that's that they're really trying to get us to do differently is to not wear dirty gear after a fire. The only way to do that is to wash it right afterwards. Historically, in the past, you'd have a fire at 10 o'clock in the morning, you'd be working until 7 the next morning, 24 hours. You just wash it the next morning when you went home. 7 all day, any other call you went on, you're wearing the gear, you're putting the stuff on, you're getting all that carcinogens back on you. The big push is immediately shower, immediately wash your fire gear. The only way to do that is if you have a second set of gear. Right now, we have very few members who have a full second set of gear that they can wear. Again, we do budget some money every year for it, and our goal was to, if you replace 6 or 8 sets a year, eventually you're going to get it taken care of. We haven't been able to do that. So we think that this is an urgent project for us that we would like to get. If we can get everybody in a new set of gear, it'll get everybody with a full second set of gear. It'll take care of the ability for that second set, for the cancer stuff, for cleaning, if you have to send something out for a repair, any of that type of stuff, and not be short. So that's a big piece with us. We are going to try for a grant on this. That grant application process is not opened yet. And as with any federal grant, there's no guarantees. We'll see what happens, but there's no guarantee. That grant application period, they never really tell you ahead of time when it opens, but it's usually late fall, early winter type that it opens, so you wouldn't be hearing back from this until late spring, early summer to even know if we got it.
What makes you think about getting a grant? I'm just curious about that. What made you think you can get a grant on this here? Through what agency and how?
Yeah, it's through the federal government, the Assistance to Firefighters Grant, and the only one that we know of in our area that received grant, Belmont actually received a grant for fire gear a couple years ago. A lot of it's going to look at age of gear, and they make a determination on how bad you need it and what your age of the equipment and that type of stuff. So that's our goal, is to try for it. We will be putting in for it this year, and, we're using a lot of the same information that Belmont used to try to, sway it, because they were successfully able to get it. So that's all we're gonna try. Yep.
Do the firefighters wash the gear in their own washing machines at home?
Nope, no, we have both the Weirs and the Central Station has commercial wash machines and dryers specifically for fire gear.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was something we didn't have. We probably started doing that maybe 10 years ago. We bought our first set of that, and yeah, that made a huge difference. That's, we still would bring and actually a lot of time we have regular clothing that they wear, they'll wash at the station too. Doing everything they can to not bring stuff home.
Right.
Yeah. Other questions on the fire gear? All right.
What makes it urgent, though? That's what, I mean, you had a way of doing what you've been doing for a period of time, and now it becomes urgent. I'm saying, what causes that urgency?
Because all we're going to be doing, I mean, the way we looked at it is all we're going to be doing is spending our operational budget on that money and never really getting ahead, so it's always going to be outward.
So
We're really trying to push for the safety. That's really what makes it urgent to us. We're never going to get to a point where we can have everybody with 2 sets of gear, be following through with recommendations for all the cancer and to protect the firefighters. We're not going to get to that point. And we've made a lot of policies. We've changed a lot of procedures recently, I would say within the last 18 months, to try to prevent firefighters. I hate to keep using the word, but the cancer prevention, we've made a lot of policy changes. We've implemented them. The firefighters have been following through and really taking it to heart. And this is just the one piece that we can't do with just a regular operating budget.
But there's nothing like a carcinogenic cause, something, now it's urgent, nothing like that's in the mix there. I'm trying to get my.
No, we didn't have an incident where all of a sudden we lost, 15 sets of 20 sets of gear. No. Okay. I went back to our first page, F01, the fire engine replacement. This has been something we've had on our list for a while. The goal is going to be to replace one engine. Initially, the plan is to replace, it's not, you can't really see it as well as I was hoping, but is to replace the used Sutphen that we had bought, the 1990. This is right now is a spare engine at Central Station. It's spare at Central because that's where it's housed. It really becomes a spare engine if either the primary engine, the Weirs, or the primary engine downtown goes out of service, or if we're at an incident and we have off-duty personnel come back, they can either take this to the fire or they can staff it to cover the city. That's been the plan from the beginning. We'll get rid of this, bring engine 5 down from the Weirs as a spare because it's a really, we like that piece of apparatus, and put the new one in the Weirs. Been the plan for a couple years now. Unfortunately, we're not positive that that's going to be our exact way of being able to do it. Couple of pictures right there. That's the air tank that's under engine 5, and you see the rust on it. That was just replaced by Public Works. And the next picture shows the chassis. The underside of the truck was heavily rusted. That's all been blown off of it. If we are going to keep engine 5 and keep this going, it's going to take a little bit more work in making sure through Public Works that this is still going to be the right way to go. There is concern that the chassis is going to have to be replaced, which if we're going to have to replace the chassis and we're going to be getting a new engine, we may turn the other way and keep the spare engine that we have now and do it that way. I'm not sure which way we're going to go right now. If we're awarded it, it's just going to take more work to make the decision that we keep the best truck for the longest period of time. Never was our intention until this was probably just within a month ago that we got all this information here. So a little bit more work to make that decision, but we do know that we're going to have to do some work with either one of them when we make that replacement.
When you got a call, last year, I don't know if it was you talking to us or not, but a lot of communities come in to help out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still?
Yeah, we work very well with our communities that are around us. Yep.
And they come in most calls, they come in, I understand, is that correct?
Reported building fires, they'll come in.
Yeah.
And any of the, what we consider as high hazards, hospitals, nursing homes, actually not the nursing homes, the hospitals, the high rises, places like that, they do come in.
And I think you said last year they send in pumpers when they come in, is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you might be augmented, say with Guilford, Belmont, or.
Yeah, Guilford and Belmont will send automatic on any reported fire, they'll send an engine, a
Sandwich
pumper.
will come in with a pumper also.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
The one issue, there's a couple of reasons why yes, they do help us out, and our off-duty personnel will come in to bring the spare engine to a fire. If something was to happen to one of the primary engines, though, without a good spare, we don't have any way of supplementing those. So it's more than just at fires that we need that, it's when one of them goes down for repair, we have a good spare that we can run.
Well, in essence, this would be like a spare, but it'd be, new, but.
The new one would go to the Weirs, so we have a brand new at both stations.
Brand new in each station.
Yeah, and then we'd have a good quality spare, depending on whether it's engine 5 or engine 2, the 90 or the 2004 that we had.
I have a question.
Yep.
How do you guys deal with the brine now that we're using brine and there's so much intensive exposure to the undercarriages of the vehicles that even Public Works in the papers?
Yep. So this will be the first winter that we've addressed it the way we're going to do. I've got somebody working on it. We're going to either purchase or produce in-house an undercarriage washer, so we're able to wash at both stations all the apparatus when they come back. We do it now and then. We rinse down, but you don't get the underside real well. Yeah. I've got somebody working on it right now, so come winter time, we'll have the ability to just wheel something underneath and wash the underside of the truck.
Cool.
Yep. I'm going to skip down one there. We can talk, again, I'll go back to any of those. The 03, the brush fire pump, just to show you a picture. This is what we're talking about here, not the truck itself on the left. I'm just showing you what we staff it on. On the right, there's a pump and a skid unit. That skid unit has about 175 gallons of water in it, plus the pump for brush fires. This is the pump. The whole setup together is about 19 years old. I believe the pump itself is actually a little bit older. If you look along the edges, the entire pump housing is welded. It's just a big weld now. And we've been told, look, you got to stop welding this. It's just not going to work anymore. So if this was to blow out and fail, it's not going to be repairable.
So you're saying replace the skid unit or?
Both. We'll buy it as
Two things
we'll
in
buy it as a package.
So there's a pump and a skid unit?
Yeah, we'll buy it as a package. The skid unit, the tank portion of the skid unit, this gets bolted down to the front of it and slides in and out.
Pull it right out of the back of the truck?
Yeah, we drain the water out of it and pull it out in the wintertime, so we can use the truck in the winter without having this in the back.
What usually makes it crack? Rough wear or?
Yeah, I think it's just age. I think it's just old. It's been just wear and tear over the years. Yeah. Next one on our list is the rescue boat. This is the one here that I'll show you a picture of. Housed out of Central Station. It's funny, the pictures look so much brighter on your phone when you take. So this is the portable rescue boat that we have. It was a donation to us. We don't have the age exact on it. The trailer is an original from probably 20 years ago now. We use this boat, this is used in the rivers, it's used in Lake Opeechee as a primary boat, and then it goes into any of the other bodies of water that we have, even though we have boats once those come out of the water. So that late fall and spring, when you can't put the big boats in and still need to get out there, this is what we use. And then actually, this gets towed to any water rescue we have in the wintertime anyhow, because you pull the motor off, you do have the ability to use it just as a platform. It's been patched many times. It's doesn't always hold air like it should because of the patching. I think we've done a pretty nice job of keeping up with it. It's just old. It's just tired. We'd like to get a stronger sized motor. Right now, it's a 15 horse that's on there. I'd like to see us get a little bit bigger motor and a newer boat with trailer. And, you know, I think it would last us a long time. But it's time to replace that and get something a little bit different.
Do we have another boat at all? I thought we did.
So we have boats that, we have the permanent boats that stay in Opeechee and we have two in Opeechee, Winnipesaukee and one in Winnisquam. The one in Winnisquam, there was just donated. The other ones were purchased through Life Saving Fund. So this one, we would like to get replaced. Again, it's the one that goes on every water rescue we have, whether it goes in the water or not.
Would you still use it for hauling in the wintertime?
Yeah, would we still use it? It's a possibility. We hadn't really thought about what we'd do afterwards,
I
but
mean, just if you beat up the new one or beat up the old
yeah,
one.
to drag on ice, it would actually be something you could probably do. But instead of damaging the new one, yeah. That doesn't happen too often, but I'll give you a prime example. You have something on Winnisquam where the ice is coming in, but you still got all the river open. We'll launch this, we'll go down, we'll get as close as we can to the ice,
Yeah.
do our work, and move on. So
What happens to the other boats when everything's iced up? What do you do with those?
they come out of the water and they go to get serviced while they're in the, while they're out for the winter.
But it seems like you eliminate those as an option. You use this boat, but the others are excluded when it comes to wintertime.
Yeah, they have to. They have to come out of the water. There's no, where they'd be in the water wouldn't be any use to us for, they can't get up the river. They couldn't really get into any areas of open water at that time. Really, the only places that we use them in the wintertime that were in water, the river down here, the channel, and again, depending on how ice conditions are.
Are they kept at the ready or are they all winterized?
No, they're winterized. No.
So the new one would have to be winterized, correct?
This would not. This stays just like you see it right now, it's on a
That
tow
one
hitch, ready
does,
to
but
go all the
Replacement
time.
with the larger engine and all that, would that have to be
No,
winterized?
no.
They
This
have
would
two
replace
strokes
this.
That'll self-winterize.
What's that?
They have two strokes that self-winterize.
Yeah, no, this parks inside with a tow hitch and goes behind either the rescue or an engine to wherever we're going. All right, I will just talk a little bit about, I know you've heard this before, and I know you heard this from PD, the radio improvements. Obviously, we did try to work with the police over the last few years. It didn't happen. The grants didn't happen, the work just didn't happen.
Who'd you go to for those grants? Just curious.
That was a state Homeland Security grant. And we tried both 2 years with that. Once we wrote it ourselves, and the next year, we actually had somebody come up and help
See,
us
the
write
police
it.
department's here too, so I'll mention it for both of you. What about FEMA? I understand they've given grants last year and the year before. They gave it to Belmont. They got their radio systems from them, from FEMA.
The radio system infrastructure change is that they may get portables, they may get some radio upgrades like in the trucks to change infrastructure of radios. We've been told that that's just not something they like to do. We did, like I said, we tried this a couple times and didn't get anywhere with it.
So you never really applied to FEMA, per se.
That wasn't through FEMA, all right? That was just state. That was just state that we did. No, no.
But this is federal, FEMA's federal.
Right, no, yeah, no. I mean, we can look that way. We can certainly take a look at it.
I mean, there's been a success with Belmont. I think they got their cost down to $125,000.
Right, they got mobiles and portables. As far as changing radio antennas, towers, repeaters, that type
I
of
don't
stuff,
know
they didn't
what
do any of
the
that.
scope would be okay, except that that's, might be a source of revenue for your department, even the police department. That's why, yes, that's why.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we can look into that we've never, you know, yeah, I mean, it's something we can look into.
Yep.
Let's see, as far as any of the other new stuff goes, I think the only real new thing on here, unless to see something that you guys want to talk about, is replacing the staff car, replacing a staff car.
How many miles on that car?
It is 105, 95.
And who uses that?
It is used for a couple different things. We use it for one of our deputy chief's car, and he's also used, it stays at the station, though, he just uses it when he's here. He, shift uses it for going out and doing inspections, errands, anything they have to do, that type of stuff.
So you're averaging less than about 9,000 miles a year in that vehicle, I guess.
Yeah, it was a frontline car.
So you're down to less than 9,000 miles a year, right?
Yeah, well, yes.
What's the usage right now, do you think? What are you using, how many miles on it?
I don't know.
4 or 5?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, that's probably fair.
All right, there you go.
I have a far-out question,
Yep.
if this is the appropriate time. When we look at this new fire station here, and I'm just curious, because I don't know how this works, were you guys imagining this? Do you have an idea?
I think it's something that's in, you know, it's something we've looked at. Wanted to hold it in here. It would be in the north end, the Parade Road area. I think as this started to grow up, when this was first introduced in here, it was with anticipation of a more rapid increased growth in population up that way. We're not seeing that. So it's something
And
we
I'm
want
just-
to,
I'm just
that's where the intent would be.
And I'm just curious, because, you know, I wonder if it's integrated with any of the master plan stuff, or if it gets discussion in the vision, you know, or.
Yep, no, that would be that's the intent on, if we ever had to do that, that's where it would go.
You'd like Hilliard Road to be an access right to the weirs from there, right?
Well, yeah, at least get it up in that direction. You know, we can't use we can't get down the Hilliard Road from our end
Yeah.
right now, but, yeah, it would at least get us up in that area. But again, growth would have to happen up there, population, industry maybe, you know, something would have to change in that area to make it feasible or worthwhile. I think that's really it. Everything else was on there before. If you have any other questions, though, I'd be glad to answer them. If not, we'll turn it over.
You know, I might suggest that you do find out a little about the FEMA grants, because it seems like it would dovetail into,
I absolutely will take a look at it. You know, everything we're told is that infrastructure with them, they do not like to touch that
Yeah.
at all. But, you know, and that's kind of why we steered clear of it.
Right.
But, you know, it never hurts to
Not
look,
sure
it never hurts to look again.
yeah, I'm not sure infrastructure could be interpreted as, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
uniforms be interpreted as infrastructure, you know?
Yeah.
It
Yep,
might-
I
it
mean, we
might
can certainly look, we can
So-
certainly look some more.
Maybe a hot knife going through butter, I don't know, but, yeah, okay. Any more questions or anything like that?
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have, brought to you by And we'll close the fire department's presentation at 7:05. And we'll open up the Parks and Recs at 7:05 in 10 seconds.
Good evening.
Hi.
Kevin Dunleavy, Director of Recreation and Facilities for the City of Laconia. I'm here tonight to present the Parks and Recreation Capital Improvement Program. There'll be 8 items that we're requesting for the upcoming year. And in addition to those 8 items, there are 3 items, which are the very last 3 items listed on the spreadsheet, that are police department improvements that we're requesting. And Al from Laconia Police is here tonight to answer any questions that I might not be able to on those 3 items.
So is that like, well, let me go back now, yeah.
I'll give you the numbers.
Would you mind? Yeah, well,
It's P34, P35, and P36.
34, 35, and 36. Okay. That's the carpet, or whatever, okay.
Yes.
Now, why are you doing that for the police department? Is that your scope of responsibility?
Well, yep, it's part of my facilities portion of my job, is to handle some facility improvements and include those.
So they
It's really
will-
what they call a non-departmental, which I'm
Right.
not sure I understand why it's that term, but it's
You
something I
take care
have.
of the departments that way, I see,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. So what I'll do is I'll just go through the first 8 items, park items, individually that are requests for the upcoming year. Feel free to jump in with any questions as you see fit. First item is entitled O-Pee-Chee Beach Facility Drainage Improvements Design Phase. We're experiencing erosion at all of our in-town beaches. We are looking to get design work done. This particular request is for the 2 O-Pee-Chee Park beaches, O-Pee-Chee Point, O-Pee-Chee Cove. We can no longer re-nourish these beaches with beach sand like may have done in the past. There are very minimal nourishment approvals that you can get through New Hampshire DES. So we need to start looking at what the issues are as far as why these beaches are eroding. We need to implement stormwater and surface runoff improvements to prevent them, particularly so that we can apply for renourishment of these beaches. Now, I will say that the City Council has approved design funding for Bartlett and Bond Beach in the amount of $40,000 so that money is in place now, and we'll be doing design work. So we're going to be having but this is going to be design work for the O-Pee-Chee beaches. So really, it's we're kind of splitting up these projects, so we're not doing them all in one.
So I'm going to play one off the other. What was found on Bartlett and Bond Beach that gives us wisdom on O-Pee-Chee Beach? I mean...
Right.
What's the difference?
The difference between the two, I'll tell you that Bartlett and Bond, particularly Bond Beach, has significantly more erosion than the O-Pee-Chee beaches.
Right. That we knew from 2 years ago.
Right.
And that was because of the drainage, right? Off of
Correct.
whatever that road is.
Right. Now, we just received the funding as of July 1st, when the budget was approved, so that funding just came into our hands in July 1st.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be doing design for Bartlett and
So it
Bond.
took us a year after we knew what the problem is, how to...
Right.
So funding for, okay.
Yeah, so we're not quite there yet as far as having design on those others too.
Okay.
So, and we're seeing significant use of our in-town beaches, that we know we have issues at Weirs Beach as well, but with the rule changes from New Hampshire DES, we just don't have the ability to go and dump loads of sand on these beaches anymore without solving the problem that's causing them to erode. The rules are much more stringent than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago, and we're running into situations where we're going to be losing these beaches, and we don't want erosion either, so we're trying to address these issues before they get to a point where we have significant problems.
I have a question.
Sure.
How about the studies that were done on Weirs Beach? Wasn't there a whole study
Right.
for?
Yep, and we're still working through that. In fact, I'll be meeting with New Hampshire DES in November with our consultant. So that's a bit of a unique project because of the scope of that, because we're talking about a significant dredge and fill operation for Weirs Beach as part of that. These in-town beach projects don't rise to that level. So I would caution you to compare them, although they are trying to accomplish some of the same things, but Weirs Beach is in a category of its own due to the impacts that it's going to have inside the shoreland zone.
So who does a study like this?
We have engineers that are on-call engineers that we could utilize that have been secured through the RFQ process that the city has essentially on call. So we can get proposals from them. So any engineering firm that deals with stormwater improvements could be a candidate to do the design work for these types of projects.
But
And a
this
lot
is-
of it is just looking at interceptor drains, ways of stabilizing the beach. We could be looking at potentially perched beaches, which is, I think Alton might have done a perched beach, which means that
Sits up.
you have a retaining structure near the water's edge that holds that sand in.
Correct.
So that's an option that we're going to look at. Not ideal for a public beach, but some of the smaller ones, it may not be that big of a,
Well, maybe I'm old, but over the years, I've always gone to public places and beaches, and I'd see kids step down and then
Yeah.
go into the water. So I'm
Sure.
not sure that it's that
right. So I don't think it's.
bad, that of a handicap for the kids to enjoy themselves.
Right.
If
So
you
that's,
place-
and that's something that DES is, particularly when you see the small condominium association beaches, they are looking at perched beaches. So that may be an option that would be feasible.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at for design. So to answer your question, there are firms that are in New Hampshire that can do that kind of work, and we have secured firms to be able to do that work. We would get proposals from them, and they would have the sufficient ability to, it isn't necessarily a specialized field, particularly with those that do work around the lake here frequently. Any questions on that item?
So Bartlett and Bond Beach is implementation of the plan, right?
Bartlett and Bond are currently in design. We have the funding secured for design. What I'm asking for the upcoming item under PRO1 is design for O-Pee-Chee Cove and O-Pee-Chee Point.
Right.
Now, item PRO2,
Yep,
this is for construction phase.
right.
So we're assuming we'll have the design done prior to, say, by spring, we'll have a design in place. We'll be eligible to go out to get proposals to do the construction work, whatever that may be, whatever the design determines.
So would that be a step beach? What would that be?
It could be. It could be. We haven't had the design yet.
There's no basis for that 120 at this point.
That estimate at this point is just anticipating what we might be looking at for costs. And that 120 would be for improvements, if you split it in half, 60 at one beach, 60 at another, it may work out where you may have a little more improvements needed at one beach. Like Bartlett, I don't anticipate it being as expensive for construction as at Bond because of the needs at Bond and the terrain and the slope. Bartlett's a relatively shallow terrain there, so I think we'll need the improvement.
Just got to clean it up more often, that's all.
Right, oh yeah, and there's some
No
parking.
criticism, just saying
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the scope of the maintenance on that,
Right,
so to speak.
and the parking lot is a gravel lot that has it has sheet flow that goes right across our beach, and those are things that,
Do we have lights at these beaches at all?
at Bartlett, there is a light in the parking lot.
There is?
Yep.
Oh, in the parking lot, okay.
On the photos, it has a photo cell, and there's lights on the bathhouse, on either side of the bathhouse.
Now, those go on all night long, or?
Those are on all night long, they're on a photo cell. Bond, we don't have trying to think of the bathhouse lights, if that's on a photo cell. But that has a gate, so we try to close that at night. In this time of year, we're getting close to shutting down Bond anyway, this time of year at night.
But you have enough residents A gate is not really a problem.
No, they know how to
I mean,
walk
they
around
just-
it.
They just walk around with their
Yeah.
picnic baskets, I mean,
Right.
so,
Right.
yeah, okay.
So just to review PRO2, that is for construction for Bond and Bartlett, construction for drainage improvements at those two beaches. PRO3 is a new project that has really come to the forefront. The project is entitled Gale Avenue Waterfront Improvement. And I don't want you to think that this is a huge plot of land that we have on the waterfront. It's really an extension of the Gale Avenue right-of-way. Gale Avenue, for those of you that don't know, is off of Pleasant Street, and the frontage is actually on Winnisquam, Lake Winnisquam. And the history of that goes back to the turn of the century, where the city had a public wharf at the end of Gale Ave. And through the years, there's been several different types of structures as a public wharf. So there's always been public access to that property. I think going back maybe 15, 20 years, it was a bit of an improvement to make it more of a park setting. The location is not a beach or not a swimming location, but it had a public dock there up until about 2 years ago, where the aluminum float dock was just in such poor condition that we had to remove it. We're now experiencing significant erosion along the shoreline there. Some of it's due to the runoff from the end of Gale Ave. Some of it's just wave action. So we'd like to stabilize that shorefront. But we'd also like to install a new dock system that's would be more appropriate for that type of use in that type of setting in a residential area. That a dock system that people could launch canoes and kayaks and enjoy that type of public access.
Refresh my mind on that. Is there parking down in that area?
There's enough parking for maybe 4 or 5 cars. There's a small little parking space.
Okay.
And and people go down and have picnics, they fish, let the dogs go for a swim. It's really a nice area for public access to Winnisquam, and as we all know, we're always looking for trying to get public access to our lakes, and this is it's in a compact residential area. I think it would be a nice improvement. As far as promoting it for a public dock for motorboats, it certainly could have the opportunity for a small motorboat, but for people to come in and park there and actually you go to downtown, or it's just not the location that I think we're going to see that type of activity. Nor would we want a system where it just wouldn't get used enough to have a large dock system there for public docks. So I think
But you would have a lot of, I would believe, in, this day and age, you would have a lot of activity with kayakers and that kind of activity.
Right.
That's why I asked about the parking, because I would think at any given day, say on a weekend, you might have 10, 20 people getting access to the lake, yeah.
And there is on-street parking. I don't think it's posted, although, could be there with minimal disruption to the abutters. I think, if it got to that point. But I think there's 4 or 5
I think we should be
spaces.
thinking about that, but I'm just,
Yeah.
just as a,
Yeah.
not as a poo-poo, I'm just saying as, as a thought on the plan,
Right.
and the concept.
Right. So, so that's, I think would be a great improvement as a new project. Item PRO4 is playground revitalization, and this may sound familiar to some of you that have been on the CIP for a long time. There was a series of years where there was an allocation for improvements for the playground system here in Laconia. And we've done a great job of implementing playground systems throughout our city, and they're extremely popular. And we have them at Wyatt Park, Tardif, Levitt, Opeechee, brand new one at Weirs Community Park, Sanborn Park, really nice systems. Some of them are getting now 10, 15 years old, and the equipment itself is starting to wear down. And so we have, at Sanborn Park this year, there's like a suspension bridge, for lack of a better term, suspension bridge element that we had to remove because it just didn't pass inspection. There were some pieces that were starting to crack. We had to remove it. To repair that element alone, we were in the neighborhood of $5,000 or $6,000 just for that element. So for for me to absorb that in my operating budget, and you have a couple of those items every year on these playground systems, we start getting quite a bit of money that's needed for these playground systems. And so I'm requesting $15,000 for the upcoming year, and I'd be looking for that $15,000 every other year moving forward, just to try to keep on top of these playground systems.
What about the, I know that you put some kind of a rubberized material instead of stones underneath the...
Underneath, yeah, we actually use wood playground mulch, what they call playground mulch.
Okay.
So it's a type of bark mulch, but it has to meet a certain specification.
Right,
And it has to be certified. There are communities that will use the rubberized mulch. We've opted just to use the bark mulch, only because the rubber tends to get spread throughout the area, and we don't necessarily want the rubber, migrating out into the picnic areas and into the grass. And with the wood mulch accomplishes the same thing, and it's just biodegradable and a little more.
Do you budget that, or is it not a capital expense?
That we budget in our operating budget.
Your operating
for the
budget,
Right,
okay.
right. So this would be is essentially for replacement of existing playground element structures. I mean, even the swing sets themselves, the chains will wear on those, and frequently, and we have to inspect them, and we're changing a fair amount of swings every year. So it accumulates. So item PR05 is the Levitt Park basketball court resurfacing. Funding was made available for the resurfacing of the Tardif Park court and the Sanborn Park court. So this is the next one in line. Those will be done in the spring. The next one in line that needs resurfacing is the Levitt Park court, which is 2 basketball courts. And this is just to keep up. What happens is there's a top course that goes on a finished course that's usually a colorized surface, like a green or a red, and then also the line striping itself. So Levitt Park is one that will need to be done.
How long did that last? That's relatively new. I remember the lady next door, when, I think it was the planning board, and she had an issue with us.
Well, it's been there as long as, boy, it's got to
On
be,
Washington Street.
yeah.
So we're talking about the same location, the little
Sure.
building there. How long was that?
Oh, it's got to be 10 years now anyway.
Really? Really, Dylan?
so.
Wow,
Really?
doesn't seem that long
Basketball
to me.
court?
Isn't that where Mr. Baldick stood up and spoke and for that on the research?
No, he also, no, he spoke on the tennis courts also, so he might have
Okay.
talked about the basketball
I get
court,
it.
but I don't remember what he spoke on in relation
it.
to the basketball court.
Yeah. I mean, it's at the moment, it's the least of the ones, but it's something we want to keep up with. I mean, the green colorized, you can see we're starting to get down to the asphalt layer.
What does that mean? You're gonna seal it? What
No,
is-
they just come in and they put a finished
top
course over it, which is green in color, and it has a texture to it, so it grips, and then they'll redo the lines, the white lines for the court.
I mean, it's not that expensive, but I'm thinking, seems like the thing was just
Right.
built, you know?
Right, no, understandable. I will say that Tardif Park and Sanborn Park, which are getting done in the spring, were far worse than what Levitt Park courts are now. The Levitt Park courts are getting there, but they are not at the level that the other 2, which will be done next spring, were at. Those were,
And those aren't never shoveled, they're just, the snow
Yeah.
comes in and that's it.
you got it, unless the kids get out there with their shovels, which they will do
Right.
sometimes, which is fine.
They just resurfaced, so there's no deflection in the surface at all, or do they just?
Well, if there's small hairline
Place
cracks,
where?
if there's hairline cracks, they'll fill those in, and then they'll put like
Surface over it?
Yeah, and then, but if there's depressions or what called bird baths,
Yeah.
we don't, no, I'm not aware of any significant bird baths there. They can fill them in a little bit, they can level those off depending on how deep they are. But if they're too deep, then you're gonna have to do something different. and address it in a different way. Those when they get really deep, like, half an inch to an inch deep puddle, then you've got more problems with the settlement of the surface itself, and it's hard to get those to fill in. The next item is PRO 6, is a centralized irrigation control system. And currently, the city, Parks and Rec now has over 20 automated irrigation systems, and all of them are all manually controlled, meaning that they have controllers that you can go and set for them to go off 3 days a week, or for 20 minutes a zone, or whatever needs to be done, depending on the location. But what we have to do is number one, if we have an issue with an irrigation system, we don't always know about it. So there could be a leak, there could be a malfunction, it may not be coming on, and we don't know about that until we see a problem or an issue or somebody contacts us. But with a automated system, what we're looking at is that each control system or each irrigation system would be linked to a desktop computer that we could troubleshoot, we could monitor, we could change the settings from a single desktop computer.
So do you view that as a labor savings of some sort?
I look at it as a labor savings, so if we say we get a week of rain, instead of sending somebody around to adjust all the control boxes, we can do it in a matter of probably 5 or 10 minutes at a desktop computer.
Now, would that be every zone, or just the whole system for that park, for example?
You could do the whole system throughout the city, all 20 systems.
Right, but what would the controller go on, each zone?
It depends on the system. Some systems only have one zone.
Okay.
Some are just drip irrigation.
There's multiple zones, I guess.
Oh, yeah, like,
So would you so if you had, I don't know, which park has, say, 5 or 10 zones? I can't name one, but I don't know.
sure.
Which
Yeah,
one would have
like
that?
Opeechee Park has, I think, 20 zones.
So would that be one for the 20, or would you go 20 times on that? Would you put 20 controllers in?
Oh, no, it's one controller.
One controller, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And that would be linked to, we have one controller for all 20 zones, and if you want to change your zones, you just have to select the zone and change.
So if we go along with this, Kevin, right, next year you'll come in for an automatic blow system that pressurizes the system, so no, that's, no, you kidding.
Yeah.
But that's
Well, the
next
other thing to
out there.
consider on this, too, is water consumption. We pay significant money for water.
Yeah.
And so, although Seth Nuttleman always likes it when we pay for the water,
I can see the cost benefit of it, you know.
I think between
Not that
labor
difficult
and
to
water
figure out.
consumption,
Yeah.
and not only that, but
The labor itself.
right. So, I mean, it's certainly, I can't argue, this is a significant initial investment.
So where'd you get the number?
This number was from a irrigation consultant that we had come in and just looked at what we had for equipment. Some of our control systems are,
So like the dialogue was, well, it's 35, but put in for 50. What's the dialogue on that?
What's that?
You didn't get a firm quote, did you?
oh, no, yeah, he said around $50,000 is what he told us, yeah.
So that was
And that's based on, some of our systems are already ready for that. You just have to put in some kind of it's basically like, almost like a cellular service. So they're ready for that. Other systems, we need new control boxes. So our newer systems, we don't need to change the control box itself. We just have to modify it so that it'll be linked to the desktop.
Technology's really taken off. I was at a restaurant and the gal was putting out lights, the little candles at the tables, and she dropped them off. And then she had a remote, and she started them all, and she adjusted them all. She stood in one spot, she did it, and she put it in a little, at the end of the night, I guess she puts it in a cradle, and they charge, and the next day, she just drops them off the table, she hits the remote, and all the lights go on the table.
There you go.
So it's really getting along pretty much there, but so, getting back to this, so you have a range? I mean, is it just 50,000? I mean, that's what.
He gave us an estimate of 50, he went out and he looked at everything we had.
So what's your suspicion quotient on that 50? Good?
I
or
would
bad?
say that it would be 50 that would be on the high end.
Okay, all right,
So I would think that that would be at most 50.
okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah, it does,
Okay,
yeah.
Any questions on that? Let's see, item PRO 7, Memorial Park softball field irrigation. This is one of two fields that are located at Memorial Park, the other one being the baseball field. We installed the irrigation system for the baseball field last fall, and we already have seen great results as far as the quality of the field. If you drive by there now, compared to what it would have been last year before the system was in, we have youth football that utilizes the baseball field for their practices, and we couldn't keep grass in that outfield just because of the amount of use. And football is a little more harsh on turf, but now that we've been able to have an irrigation system, we're able to get better results by overseeding. So we're able to really thicken up that field through the irrigation system. And we're looking to do the same thing now at the softball field, which would be a smaller system that we put in the baseball field. But that would be the last major athletic field that we have in our system that would be the last one to get automated irrigation.
So that 25,000 is the irrigation system as well as the controlling?
Yep, that would be, yep.
So that is not, that 50,000 or a portion of that won't be used on the controlling of that system?
Nope.
Or could be if you come in low?
I would say very small amount.
Okay.
Potentially.
Right.
Yes, we may end up having to get we would need to maybe get a little better, get a compatible controller box, which we probably would have done anyway. But we just need to get some kind of module that would allow it to talk to because it would be a remote
So
system.
those controllers run about 2,000 a field or whatever you're going to put it in, right, as a rule?
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Okay.
And the last item is PR08, skate park elements. And this one, I think we've moved up the list a little bit. Some of you may know we have a skate park designated area by the Laconia Police Station. The origins of the park go back, at least probably, I'm guessing 15 years ago. And the elements that were built in that park were wooden elements. I think were made, I believe maybe the Hewitt Center was involved and other volunteers to build wooden structures. Those structures now have gotten to the point where we're unable to repair them anymore. They're just just due to the elements that they've been subjected to, the wear and tear. We try to screw plywood down and the supporting structure's all rotted. So we unfortunately have closed the skate park for use this summer. So, and we'll be looking to, the remaining elements we'll be looking to remove. Now, based on my research in this area, it seems like communities really struggle with getting homemade, what I would call homemade wooden skate park elements. They're a maintenance nightmare. They're not always the safest things. They don't hold up well with our weather. Any communities that are looking for a durable and an appropriate type of skate park is looking to put in concrete elements for a number of reasons. Number one, the people that skateboard prefer those types of elements. Number two, the maintenance on it is significantly less than wooden structures. But with that comes obviously added costs. One of the things, and I put in for $75,000. Now, that would get us a bare bones skate park with very few concrete elements. But what I would like to see happen, I think this needs to be a public-private partnership. I think there needs to be private fundraising that goes on in order to make this type of facility, make this really come to fruition and happen.
So you're looking at something like Jersey barriers that could be put in and...
That's a good example. Some places will go so far as they actually have companies that specialize in installation.
I
and
don't mean jerseys per se, but I'm saying...
Right, along
that-
those lines.
where you can pick them up and you can move them around in there.
Yeah, there are precast elements you can do, but there's also where they come in and they'll do form work and they'll create swimming pool structures
They'll
and
pour right on the spot, okay.
right. And Nashua just put in a brand new skate park. They spent $550,000 on a skate park. It's gorgeous. It's great.
So you're telling me this is the tip of the iceberg, that's what you're telling me.
Right. But one of the things I think we should, you're right, and $75,000 would get us something for the kids to
I
do.
love the way you pull it off. I love the way- Go ahead, Kevin.
But one of the things I think needs to be investigated, and I've already made some preliminary contacts, is it seems like all the small communities struggle to get skate parks that are appropriate and have the right equipment. And one of the concepts I'd like to investigate is a regional skate park, where every community in the Lakes region could contribute funding to the construction, and the maintenance of it could be shared with the surrounding communities. I mean, I think some of you may have read about how Meredith is struggling with their skate park. I don't even know if Belmont has one any longer, but I know they've had issues with
What
theirs.
struggle does Meredith have, by the way?
Well, just the equipment, I think, has been an issue, and also the staffing has been an issue there. They actually staff their skate park.
We didn't, though.
And the,
Do we? No, we never stopped it, no.
no,
Well,
you don't
it's right next
have
to the
to.
police station, so.
Right,
God
yeah,
forbid something
Al
happens,
staffs
right?
it, actually.
They open up
Out
the
his
window,
window
hey, quiet
and-
down over there, close the window.
Yeah. But I think, and that's not, and I think that's worth pursuing. I think, because kids will travel to these, sure, it'd be great for your local kids that may not have the transportation to get there, but I think if you have a decent skate park, people are gonna, kids are gonna travel there, their parents are gonna bring them there. I'm sure, I've heard of kids from Laconia that are going down to Nashua because they hear about it and they find a way to get there.
So it's like a larger park down here, is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, it's really, it's a.
Huge, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Plymouth has got a decent one. We've looked at grants. Were grant opportunities, but those opportunities are not significant, and they're usually minimal. They usually, a shared one might be a $20,000 grant. Oftentimes, they're for places that don't have a skate park, or they're for urban areas. So I'm not sure,
When we first put it in, I realized, the utilization was not that great, but then it picked up quite a
right.
bit.
And skateboarding goes in
What
cycles.
happened towards the end when you couldn't let them use it because the wood was bad and whatever? What was the utilization at that point in time?
Well, we're still getting kids using it, and I'm still getting calls
Okay.
from people interested. And I say kids, it's not always kids, it's adults or
They're asking
people
about
that
it.
grew up doing it and
Right.
that want to help out any way they can.
Did it drop off?
Oh, yeah, and it is. Right now, skateboarding, from my research, skateboarding is in a down cycle right now.
Okay.
But just like anything, it rises and then it dips. But right now, it's in the down cycle. But I don't think skateboarding's going away. You still see kids doing it. And you want to give them an appropriate place to have the activity. But I really think pursuing a regional effort would be a good thing to at least investigate. As far as the $75,000, we can certainly make something usable at this point. I think it's important to get kids to have something, because if they're not in a skate park, they're riding on storefronts, they're riding on stairways and railings, which aren't always the safest, and they're on private property, which is always an issue too. So I guess, stay tuned for that, but I think a regional effort may be something we want to investigate.
Would you be able to do it on the same size plot that it currently is, or would you be?
I will say that area, we can put a skate park there, but again, we're restricted by the amount of space we
Yeah.
have. I would say that space there is not ideal for, it would be, I would think a regional skate park, if we had the funding, it would be hard to fit something into that space. Not to say that we couldn't find another property at another location in the city, or if it's a regional effort, maybe another community may have a better site.
Would that give you the chance for land shaping as a part of your elements and everything like that? I mean, right now you're working from a flat spot.
Right.
Do
No, they can
bring
work
stuff
with,
in and
yeah, I think they, I see what you're saying. There's a place that may have some variation in terrain, might be a little more, might offer some variety in the type of elements they have. I think they can do whatever you need to. I mean, it may be a little more difficult to build up some terrain in that small space they have now by the police station, but I have a picture if anybody's curious on the Nashua skate park. I think I do. Yeah.
the old surf.
It just gives you,
Oh, I know, right? Look at that. Woo,
just gives
woo.
you an idea of
Got
what.
pools already. How about the old surf coaster property? You already got your pools.
There you go. Hey, hey, you're onto something.
Plenty of parking.
There's room for maybe 5, 6 cars by the PD at the most.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
park.
Yeah, parking is an issue at this, yeah, you're right. So, yeah, so those are the 8 items from Parks and Recreation, related
So how'd you
items.
establish that 75,000?
How did I establish it? We got an estimate from a skate park designer.
Okay.
And I can't remember the name of the company right off my head, but I could get you that if you
And
want.
that's what it would, you know,
Essentially, those are the types of, that's how terrain it would look. You can also get precast equipment too that you can do. If you have a flat surface, you can get precast elements
Yeah.
and have them, brought in and.
put in, yeah.
Right. Those are more, they cast those. that's-
Permanent. The other
yes.
ones you could
Yeah.
put to another park or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Do it with the county, do it at Gunstock.
Yeah. There you go. So if there's no questions on those items, I'll move to the police department items.
We're gonna put a trim thing in there too?
Yeah.
Oh,
The top,
I'm just saying, right?
the top, we can see it
bad.
working.
At the top of the church steeple, that's, the ones in there, just shoot right down. No? What's a good idea? I mean, it's a good idea, I don't know how practical, I mean, anything's
You tie it to
possible.
the cross at the top.
Yep.
There's a couple different.
And then we're gonna talk about,
Yep.
where are you going, you going to the ends, the last 3 things here, the police?
Yes, it will be P30, well, no, it should be, well, I don't know if it's your last page.
34, 35, and
36, correct.
Oh.
I don't know, I think you got a contradictory thing here.
I do. Uh-oh.
Well, I mean, we have to come in for a cabinet that's gonna do all that stuff, and you wanna rent a cabinet? I can't let them go. I mean, I gotta deal, I gotta harass them.
Okay, go ahead and wrap.
So some of this information is just backup information, and you may not necessarily have to refer to it tonight, but it'll be just some supporting information for why we need to have these items accomplished. I'll just wait till everybody gets one here.
Why wouldn't that, just curious, why wouldn't that be a capital expenditure from the police department, and the police department put in for that line item themselves? I don't know why. I mean, I could see the rugs, because you say
The
you,
building, it's the building.
it's the building.
Right,
Right,
Right.
it's a facility.
yeah, yeah,
He's in charge of maintaining buildings.
right.
So it's just a ventilation system, it's not tying into, you're not putting else in there, just a ventilation system. Trying to distinguish how you get involved and how
Well,
it's-
a lot of it is I deal with a lot of, I deal with the contractors for these types of building improvements, where the police don't necessarily get involved with that. So I'm constantly dealing
I
with.
see, so they lean on you to help them that way, I got you.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's more, I think we look at it as a support role. I mean, there are certainly things they do. If they need a light bulb changed, sometimes they do it themselves. Sometimes my staff will go down and do it. Just depends on what it is. But we work together, and so that's really, and when you get into the more, the more HVAC and the building improvement stuff, that's where I come in and work with them on it.
So your parks, recs, and
Parks and,
maintenance.
my title is Director of Recreation and Facilities,
Okay.
but somehow Parks is still in there too.
All right, so parks is in the mix someplace.
Right, yeah. So I'll start with P34, and this is a Police Department Evidence Room and Armory Ventilation System. And currently, there is really no ventilation system for the evidence room or the armory. And And for obvious reasons, particularly with the evidence room where you're dealing with chemicals and drugs and different types of materials that are stored in there, the environment is not conducive for people to spend a long period of time in there. And why this didn't get installed originally, I don't think either Al or I could answer that question. And the same goes for the armory, which is the location in the room that they clean their weapons with. And there are chemicals that they use to clean their weapons with that really shouldn't have long periods of exposure to that, and that air should be moved out of the building. Now, there is a central ventilation system, but it's not a closed system, meaning that the system takes outside air and it filters through the building, and that material could migrate through other rooms. So fortunately, these two rooms are adjacent to each other, so a ventilation system can be, a single system can be used to ventilate those two rooms, kind of
Outside.
isolate them.
Outside.
And do
So do you need makeup here or anything like that, or you're just, it's okay?
what's that?
Would you need makeup here to make up what you're pulling out of the room? I mean, many systems need makeup here.
I can help a little bit.
Yeah.
The air for the PD, everything inside the PD circulates, and then when it needs fresh air, they have CO detectors that sample the air. So when we need fresh air to drop the CO levels down, it pulls from the roof of the building. That's where our intake air comes from.
So that's the makeup here?
That comes in, yeah, and that would be, because what you really need for the evidence room and for the armory would be a negative pressure, so it's gonna take the air that's there, suck it out of the building.
Right.
So any additional air would be coming through the roof, through the HVAC system as it comes in. So it would take that air that's in those two rooms and move it out of the building itself, because otherwise, right now, there is no air circulation in the evidence room at all. It's totally sealed. We had the guy from Control Technologies come in, check. There's no air that comes into or out of that room. So there's no air circulation at all in that room. There's a register on the wall, on the outside wall for heat, but there's nothing for cooling in there or anything to exchange the air in that room.
So this ventilation system, accounts for that, I would think.
Right, that would take that air that's in there and move it out. So it would take fresh air from the rest of the building, pull it through those two rooms, and take it outside, so it wouldn't circulate that air in those two rooms inside the building itself.
And then pushing in makeup here, okay.
Right. And again, obviously, this is an urgent item because of the safety concerns with it, and to have officers in there working for long periods of time, it's certainly something we felt like is a priority and really should be addressed. This number is a concrete estimate that we received from Control Technologies, which would include, this 22,000 would include the HVA, the ventilation system itself, and the electrical contractor as well.
Inside of this is where you are looking to put your evidence locker also, the
The
contaminated?
drying station
Yeah,
could go in the evidence room, or we could also put that in the Sally Port, because that's a self-contained unit.
all right.
It takes the room air into the unit, and then it filters it and sends it back out of the unit.
So it doesn't need to be right in this?
No, it doesn't have to be right in there, no. And there's some.
I see this here, but it's nice we have it, but- so I'm curious, because I got done cleaning this. What's in that bore cleaner that's, is it acetone, Tylenol, what's in that?
Yeah, it's all listed in there. Let me see. Let's see.
I guess the kerosene would be a bad actor. I don't know about oleic acid.
Ethyl alcohol, kerosene,
Yeah.
oleic acid, amyl acetate, and ammonium hydroxide
Right.
are all, I don't know the exact portions of it
Yeah,
listed
yeah.
there, but those are the items that are in your Hoppy's bore cleaner. And that's what we use to clean the weapons.
It doesn't sound flammable would be a problem, but you don't know if it's ever build up in there, you know? Guys are cleaning it all at one time.
Right,
and
if we
you
go-
walk out the door and nothing's vented out, you know, that's.
Yeah, if we go to the range and,
Problematic,
you know,
okay.
you have 10, 12 people go to the range at a time, they all need to clean their weapons when they're done. They don't necessarily all clean it at the same time, but they will during that day, get them clean.
So what, I'm just curious, but what do you do for the powder that they get on themselves?
For the what?
Gunpowder? How do the officers take care, I mean, they go to a range, they must shoot an hour, 2 hours the time they go out?
Oh, 4 to 6 hours.
4 to 6 hours. So they're in uniform, they go back to the station, or they go home?
Usually it will be a training uniform, not necessarily this uniform. It's
Okay.
a polo shirt with Laconia Police on the back and their badge, and then BDU pants. So they'll either usually come back to the PD, change, wash up, and go home, or they go
So you
straight
don't
home.
really think about
Depends.
the gunpowder,
Yeah, we use
So
the lead-free primers,
Okay.
and the full metal jacket round, so not necessarily that
Yeah.
combination with the lead, so.
okay, just
Yeah, no, we're
curious,
always,
you know?
yep, we're
A
always.
lot of
concerned
shooting,
about
and I don't know whether I should be going home and put myself in the shower or not, but
So, any further questions on the ventilation system? Obviously, for 22,000, it's a lot of money, but I think what we're dealing with is would be a significant safety improvement for the officers.
There's a couple articles that deal with the type of mold spores and stuff that you can get from marijuana, for one, and then also the recommendations as far as negative pressure, the amount of air that's exchanged through the room, through CDC and also OSHA, and then there's a national the company that recommends the national, what's this one? International Association for Property and Evidence Professional Standards. So you have the standards.
so, I mean, you have humidity control according to this, you need 30 to 50%?
Yeah, there is in the building for
Is that
the
what-
HVAC.
Kevin's putting in, or you already have that?
No, we have
already
that
in.
through the system that's there already.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll move on to P35, which is Laconia Police Department carpet replacement. You'll see some pictures that we provided. That's just a sampling of just some of the conditions of the carpeting. It's you can see where it's rippled in places where it's just worn bad enough where it's just.
Is that where the coffee machine is?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I just had a slide.
You couldn't help yourself, could you?
I just had a slide.
And there's, so and what we've done is we've gone through and looked through every space, and there are places where the carpeting does not need to be replaced. Obviously closets, maybe there's a couple office spaces that I think that aren't used all the time.
Conference room.
Yeah, conference room. So there's some spaces that we don't need, so this isn't just a blanket request for everything. What we're looking to do would be replace it with carpet tile, so we're not, if you have a spill or if you have an area that gets worn out, you can replace some tiles in the future and replace it. And I believe he said he had stuff that might have matched what's already there or similar, so.
Close to the color, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we're proposing for that. And it's a lot of the workspaces that aren't, where the desk chairs are almost worn right through, I think, to the floor, and there's seams at various locations where it's just, they've come up, they've been repaired several times. Just gets a lot of use. The carpet's now, 15 years old?
14.
Yeah.
14,
so-
almost 15.
Yeah, so it's,
The original carpet when the PD was built.
so,
Kevin, I mean, you must, they must count on you to, make sure it looks nice and shiny, the wood and all that. So you must have a program that you go in and you put in the urethane and paint them, whatever, spruce it up. Do you do that periodically? Or
yeah, we'll do some, we've done some painting in the hallways. We have a janitorial service that comes in,
Yeah, to
that's
clean.
hired, that
That's
does,
cleaning.
yeah.
I meant like
We
Like,
do,
if the
we
banisters are
actually,
worn out, you know, it needs shellacking or staining. I mean, how does that get transmitted to you?
Well, we have a work order system.
So they would say, hey, we should spiffy this up, we want to make this, you know, jump out, you know,
we
brighten up.
we actually do a lot of that work ourselves.
Yeah, they do.
You do, okay.
Yeah, we,
So
put
who
in-
would tell
we
you in
put in-
City Hall that they need that done?
Who does that?
Who would tell you? Who would tell you in City Hall? I mean, he would tell you, or he would do it. But
Oh,
who
it'd
would-
just be-
Who would tell you in City Hall that needs to be done?
There isn't really a designated person for City Hall.
There isn't?
It would just
Okay.
be, that would be what I would have to
Okay.
do as part of
So
my
I'm
role.
talking to the wrong people, evidently. I didn't talk to you.
we have an electronic system
Yeah,
that
work
they
order
have, so
system.
we'll go on the computer and put in which room needs work, or light bulbs, or a leak in the faucet, or something like that, and that gets electronically sent over to Parks and Recs. They pick that up, and they just...
My staff has smartphones, and
Yeah.
so if we have something that
No,
needs...
I didn't know how that was communicated
Yeah.
to you, if it was, and if it was, how would that occur? I see how that.
If it's a bigger
happens.
project,
I see how it happens there. I just wondering how it happened in City Hall.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to you offline on that.
yeah.
Now, curious question, you had, how many years ago it was that we had mold issue in the community room?
Well, that's going back probably 4 years now.
For
Was that
years.
up in the weirs? It was more?
No, the community.
And what it
room
was-
Department,
Oh,
they had to
really?
shut
Oh.
down that room
Yeah.
to replace there was problems with water getting in the floor? Or coming up
Well,
through
there
the
was moisture,
foundation?
but it's on the slab, and that slab is close to the
Water
water table. And they don't think the slab was, you can insulate it. Sometimes they don't believe that slab was ever insulated. Typically, when you're close to the water table, you might do that. We didn't see any evidence of that. But that was more of an issue with the reheat system. We had a systems engineer come in and evaluate everything. There were some settings that needed to be changed. The reheat system was not functioning like it should. When I say reheat, believe it or not, you actually have to run your boiler in the summer.
Our boiler runs all year long.
The fire department does the same
Yes,
thing.
and that's, and the library is the same way. In order to pull the humidity out of the air, there's a process, what they call reheating, where that air has to be heated to a certain temperature to remove the moisture. So, so some of it was the boiler was not running, wasn't running all the time, and so that was part of the problem there. So that's been resolved. I think occasionally we get a humidity problem, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as it used to be in that time frame.
So I'm curious, with the carpet, if it's going to get pulled up, and then the air exchange that needs to be in the evidence locker, wouldn't you need to make sure that you have a good air exchange before you pull up the carpet in the evidence locker? Because you wouldn't want to, there's no telling what's in that carpet that you're going to release.
Evidence
and-
locker?
Yeah.
I don't think there's carpeting in there.
There's no carpet
There's
in
no-
there.
That's
No.
concrete slab,
Okay.
yeah.
That's the, I believe it's the tile on
Oh,
the
is it
floors.
tile? Okay.
All that carpet except for one room, or maybe two, is all upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah, most everything downstairs is the tile here.
I never noticed, but okay.
I think we-
Yeah, all the hallways, the sergeant's office is one of the rooms, and I think the operations lieutenant is another room, but other than that, all the carpet is the upstairs.
I just didn't know if we'd be releasing molds.
Yeah, no, I know
know.
that wouldn't be a concern. And if we saw something, obviously, when they're pulling up carpet, we would want to address that. Yeah, the dispatch room got replaced. That's that rubber
Yeah, that's a rubberized flooring in there.
in the dispatch. That was replaced a couple years ago. Any questions on the carpeting? Okay, last item is PR 36. And this is the Police Department Sally Port overhead door modifications. And the Police Department recently purchased a new transport, is it prisoner transport vehicle? Which is essentially a van that's modified. The new style of prisoner transport vehicles have a increased height to them. And I believe initial indications that it wasn't going to be an issue with pulling the new van into the Sally Port. Once they got the van, they realized that we're short about an inch or two on clearance on getting the transport vehicle into the Sally Port.
Until I put someone outside, right?
Yep, it's the two doors
Yeah.
on the outside to drive the prisoners in and out.
I think I got a picture if anybody...
So, just take the air out of the tires.
That's what I told
I
him.
was thinking about putting smaller
Take a
tires on
lowrider, yeah, I'll get one of
it,
those.
putting less spring pressure on it.
Get those
Believe me,
kid tires that are about that thick.
And
There's no lights on top of the transport van, right?
Right at the back
Oh,
end.
perfect.
Yeah, just right below the top edge, so.
How are you gonna tackle
Drove
that? How
really
much
fast,
do
we
you
could get
need?
it.
How much height do you need?
What is it, 2 inches probably? Well, I mean,
Yeah, we'd probably want
we'd want a little more, just because if we
close
got
to
ice
6,
buildup.
Yeah.
I'm just looking, how can you physically do it? I don't know.
Well, we've looked at it, the header, or the top of
the
the
header,
garage where it comes down.
Yeah.
There's a
jack
steel
that up?
support beam, but the header could be, there's a steel support beam, I-beam that goes across.
Yeah.
But the header comes down several inches, 6 inches below?
I think
The
it's a
I-beam?
12-inch. It's a
12
12-inch wood header.
Nice.
So we
below the
can,
I-beam.
right, so we can modify that the wood header,
Raise it, huh?
raise it.
Okay.
But we'd have to do it on four different, because it's a
So
pull-through.
would you just buy another panel for the door and throw it in there, or what? How would you do that?
I believe a taller panel.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
top panel's shorter.
So you raise that, get that header out, raise the header,
Yeah. We may need to
panel
do
on
some,
top, or whatever, and
well, we may need to do some modification of the track system and the tension coil. That may need to be,
yeah. that-
depending where the header
yeah,
is.
Well, yeah, I don't want to minimize that, but I mean, that's all has to be done right.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
That's, the
not
door guy does
unreasonable.
that.
What's that?
It's not unreasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I think that's the style that you're gonna be dealing with and moving to the future, so.
Yeah, we got the new transport van with a new cage in it because of seat belting. And so when we go to seat belt somebody into that cage, in the old cage, the officer was bent over like this. So you go in there with a person who's maybe not so cooperative and try to seat belt them while you're bent over, you're either gonna get elbowed or headbutted or kicked. So we went with a taller cage, hence the taller van, to keep that officer's safety, and we can get them seat belted and everything in there safely. So that's the reason why we went with the taller one. They do still make shorter ones, but again, your cage is,
But who thunk, right, I got you.
yeah, right. Yeah, it was like, yeah, no, that's plenty of room, and
Yeah,
yeah,
it
no,
won't
not so
fit,
much.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was so
Those things
close.
happen,
It was so
okay.
close.
But is there enough, I look at that picture, is there enough to get 4 inches? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Probably just want
Yes,
to be sure of
yeah.
that, I mean,
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
You might
I'm
as well do as
seeing, I'm
much
saying,
time.
I'm not sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
just
Yeah,
for the next
yeah, right
go
up to
around.
the soffit.
Right.
I mean, you won't be coming here next year for dormers, a couple of dormers to raise that into the building.
Oh, we're gonna, yeah, get a taller van and we'll have to do it again. Yeah, so that's, I think I sent around a picture there, just so you knew what the facility looks like. Yeah, so that's the 3 items for the police department building. And I think that's all we have tonight, unless there's questions on those items or any others.
Anybody got any questions? I don't have any.
Police department facility is the only facility that you have requests like that on?
I would have some for, well, I mean, other ones that we would is City Hall.
Yeah,
If we had, again, anything over $10,000. The other ones would be any park house improvements that are over 10,000, could be capital improvement requests. The Weirs Community Center, the Community Center, Laconia Community Center, and there are items in there. Bathhouses, I mean, I think down the line, there's some bathhouse improvements there that have been put in the program.
Was Long Beach bathhouse completed? Is that in the works?
Oh, that's still in the system. That's, I think,
That's the
a
one
year or
we-
two out, I think.
Oh, it is,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And we also have like a Weirs Beach bathhouse will need some improvements. That's a couple years down, is a request in there, a couple years down. As far as the fire department goes, again, we do more of a support role for them. They'll do a lot of work themselves, but again, the whole facility component is we work with them on certain projects, and then other ones that may be minor in nature. If they have staff available, then they can do that, just so you understand the relationship.
I see you have no vehicles this year, right?
No, we got a new one through the last cycle, and that's been delivered, so we're already using that. There really wasn't a need at this point for,
You might want to keep your ear to the wall, because if the fire department, or even the police department, goes forward with FEMA, I understand that Belmont, FEMA paid for 2 dump trucks.
Really?
Yeah, so.
Yep,
I mean,
that's something to
it's-
consider.
You know, it might be a little gold mine out there, but you gotta get down, into the mine,
If that money's available,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
to try to
yeah.
take advantage of it if you
Yeah,
can. Absolutely. No. Yeah, so, any other questions?
Well, that's great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank
You also,
too.
thank you.
Okay, if there's any other business, except that we're gonna do our rankings, and, the same, well, I don't have to tell you people, you all been here before, so you know what the ranking considerations are, and we just have to get it out to the new people. Edwin,
So we do have another meeting scheduled for next week. That's the public input meeting.
yeah, and we can talk about it then, but I mean, in the meantime, I don't think anybody's gonna wait till the nth moment, I don't think you do, really.
No,
So-
but if anyone has any questions while you're looking at that spreadsheet we sent you, like I said, just call or come on in, whatever's easier.
Are you advertising that? Are you advertising that public meeting?
Yep, it gets published.
Okay.
The whole schedule gets published
Okay,
at
the only
the
time we
beginning
really
of the
got
cycle.
Yeah, we don't get that many. I hope we get somebody, just so they can acknowledge that there's people out here.
No,
We could, yeah.
Park and Weirs is done, nobody shows up anymore.
Oh, yes, it's the Weirs, yeah. I mean, I think that was enough for a lifetime, wasn't it?
Every year we could count on them, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful park, though.
It is.
It's really
Oh,
nice.
yeah,
The
it
trails
is.
are nice, and
yeah,
And
it is.
imagine if there was a skateboard park across the street at Surf Coaster.
You know,
We'll
Don,
jump
are
right
you
into the
sure you don't?
lake.
Are you sure
seeing
you're
you
leaving
mention
the-
seeing you mention the Weirs,
The zip line between them,
Don,
Only if we could carry a snowmobile across it, then we could get the snowmobile.
Don Richards' wife was so disheartened about the celebration she had up here when he passed on, and I guess no one went. I had a wedding out of state, and I thought someone from the planning department was going to go, the board was going to go, but she said no one from the city showed up, which was very disheartening for her, obviously. I don't know if she expressed herself to you or not. But has anybody talked about, a dedication thing for him down there, or naming the park after him?
There is a
Plaque, no?
plaque
I don't recall.
somewhere there.
Yeah.
They've got something there for him.
You don't think it's
I don't
feasible to
know.
make it a Don Richards Park or something like that?
It'd be nice, but I don't know.
Yeah, what it takes to do it, yeah. So I thought I'd just mention it. I was mentioning
And
her
I don't
'cause-
know that Don would want that.
Yeah, but, he would accept things if you pushed it on him. I mean, he might be a little
Yeah,
bit
but I don't
modest,
know.
but, yeah. But, yeah, I just thought I'd mention that, yeah. Okay, any other business at all? Well, we have a motion to adjourn, and let's go.
Motion is, motion?
And that's 8:07 and 48 seconds.
Oh, please. Down to the seconds. Oh, my God.
We'll keep our good eye down by the dumpster when you leave tonight.
I'm sorry?
We'll keep our good eye facing the dumpster when you leave tonight. Last time we left, wasn't there something, a car parked next to that dumpster?
Quite often the cleaning crew's down there, I think. but-
Yeah.
Oh, was that what he's on? Okay.